Hello, this is Aram with the Armenian National Committee of America. Need your help today to hold accountable, to demand accountability on the part of U.S. manufacturers, U.S. defense firms, U.S. technology firms, whose parts were discovered in the Turkish Bayraktar drones that were used by Azerbaijan to commit war crimes against the people of Artsakh and the people of Armenia. You may be aware that as many as 10 U.S. companies were discovered to have ultimately supplied parts that were used in these Bayraktar drones. We documented, I think, 3 other firms that were primarily European-based. I think 7 of the 10 are purely U.S.-based, 3 are U.S. subsidiaries of foreign companies, and 3 were European companies. The bottom line is that these Bayraktar drones were produced with U.S. parts and technology, and that brings into question if any laws were violated. And this is not an issue to be swept under the rug. This is not an issue to just turn a blind eye and it's okay. It's not okay. If U.S. parts were used to kill innocent Armenians, to kill the indigenous Armenian Christian population of Artsakh, then those who are guilty at any point along the chain should be held accountable. There should be very, very strict accountability for any illegal actions that were taken. Now, do we know if they were illegal? No, at this stage, we don't. But we need 2 things to take place. Number 1, we need the Congress to investigate this matter. That's one track. And the other is for federal prosecutors, for the law enforcement authorities of the United States to investigate this matter in each instance and to discover how is it exactly that as many as 10, maybe more, 10 U.S. different manufacturers had their parts used in a Turkish Bayraktar drone. Now, Turkey is a member of NATO, right? That was then shipped to Azerbaijan and used to kill Armenians. Is it possible? Is it possible that these parts ended up in this Turkish weapon and the United States was entirely blind to it? That our intelligence community, our export control apparatus, our Department of Commerce, Department of State, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, they all were just, had no idea whatsoever that all these parts were ending up in Turkish Bayraktar drones. And, the CIA and the NSA and others who, have vast capabilities were ignorant. It is possible, I guess, that the United States was ignorant of this. And if they were ignorant, well, they know the facts now, and they're obliged to investigate it. The sad reality is they won't do it of their own accord. They won't do it of their own accord because there are too many equities at stake. There's too many foreign relationships and domestic and corporate relationships at stake. So it really rests upon us. And we have to make sure that this issue is not swept under the rug. And we can do that by going to the link on this video. Go into the link on this video right now and going and clicking on anca.org/accountability. And from that action alert, you'll send a letter to your members of Congress, the 2 U.S. senators from your state, your U.S. representative who represents your congressional district, plus an extra letter to the White House. Right now, it'll go to the Trump administration. In a few weeks, it'll go to the Biden administration. They all need to hear from you, and they all need to hear your demand, your expectation, the requirement that you have as an American citizen of Armenian heritage, but ultimately as an American. How is it that so many U.S. parts ended up in the Turkish drones and the Turkish UAVs that were used by Azerbaijan to kill Armenians? And this is not like a one-off thing. This isn't like one, very minor part was found. No, these are 10 serious components, including the optical unit, which is one of the most advanced elements of any UAV, right? And they were all this Bayraktar drone was, in a sense, patched together in large part using U.S. components, U.S. technology, U.S. software as well. Each of these companies needs to investigate, and they need to report their findings fully and publicly, but it doesn't just rest with them. This isn't just like a self-reporting situation where they're going to police their own actions. No, if there are U.S. laws that may have been broken, and it clearly seems like they were, if there are U.S. laws that may have been broken, then it is incumbent upon the administration, the Department of Justice, State, Commerce, Defense, all the relevant U.S. agencies to look into this matter and to come to a determination, a public determination, not behind closed doors, not, quiet diplomacy with these companies, not quiet talks with the Turkish or Azerbaijani regimes. No, this is a public matter that deserves the full scrutiny of the light of day. We need to shine a public spotlight on each of these parts. I'll run through them for you just to give you a sense that this is not like, the sticker they put on at the very end of production. These are core components of the Turkish Bayraktar drone that wreaked such holy hell upon Armenians in their indigenous homeland of Artsakh. We have the GPS navigation unit, obviously essential to the drone, produced by Garmin, based in Olathe, Kansas. We have the field programmable gate array chips and potentially software as well, along with those chips, produced by Xilinx in San Jose, California. We have the GPS receiver produced by Trimble Navigation, based in Sunnyvale, California. We have the sealed fuel reservoir produced by Beringer, located in Greenville, North Carolina. We have the airborne modem transceiver by ViaSat in Carlsbad, California. The drone's antenna by Comant Industries in Fullerton, California. The stub bus coupler produced by Miles Tech in Louisville, Texas. The radar altimeter produced by Smart Micro in Irvine, California. It's a subsidiary of a German firm. The optical unit, based, as I mentioned, produced by Westcam, which is ultimately a Canadian firm, but has a subsidiary based out of Orlando, Florida. And finally, the fuel filter produced by the German firm Hengst, which has a U.S. subsidiary in Camden, South Carolina. Those are 10 firms. There are 3 others that are purely European, but those 10 firms are our primary concern as Americans, because there are U.S. laws that govern the export of U.S. parts and technology to other countries, especially when those other countries use them to commit gross violations of human rights, war crimes, and acts of aggression against their own citizens and against the region. These are very, very serious issues that require a very, very serious push on the part of our community. I wish I could say that the U.S. political system was full of people who would adopt this cause as their own because it's the right thing to do. But we saw over the last 2 months and more that being on the right side of the issue is insufficient. We need to apply pressure. We need to make demands. We need to write those letters to our members of Congress and then follow up with phone calls and meetings and additional letters, and then encourage your friends and relatives, work colleagues, classmates to do the same until we get the answers that we deserve. Now, it may be in the end that after a thorough congressional investigation, after an inquiry by the relevant law enforcement authorities, they discover that this was all purely innocent, that nobody is to blame, that hundreds and hundreds of parts, from 10 different companies could make their way into some of the most lethal weapon systems in the world, and that the U.S. was blind to it, and that now that they studied it, they're perfectly fine with it. That it's actually consistent with U.S. policy to ship weapons to Turkey, which gives them to Azerbaijan to kill Armenians. That may be the case. I would be personally offended if that were the case, but that may end up being the case. But we're not going to know that stuff. We're not going to know those answers until we demand accountability on the part of our government. Demand accountability on the part of our government. Aggressively, relentlessly, unceasingly, until we get answers from our government, from the federal government, as I said, Commerce Department, which handles arms exports controls, the State Department, which is very involved in arms exports, the Defense Department, certainly the Department of Justice, which is in charge of enforcing our nation's laws. Each of these departments needs to hear from us, and they need to hear from us in a sustained and relentless and unceasing manner, such that we get answers. It's not something we're going to let folks sweep under the rug. We're not going to say it's an inconvenient issue. It's an inconvenient truth. We're going to get to the truth. And as I said, it may be, can't imagine how this might be, but it may be that the U.S. was aware of this, right? And they're perfectly fine with it. Or that they weren't aware of it, and now that they know about it, they looked into it, everything is perfectly in order. That you can sell optical units and altimeters and antennas and fuel reservoirs to the most aggressive of international actors, and they can use those weapons to kill people upon their indigenous homeland. The Christian Armenians of Artsakh, living for thousands of years in their indigenous homeland, and the U.S. government may, in the end, determine that was okay. And if that's the case, obviously we're not happy with the outcome, but at least we'll know that there was a process, that we were given our day in court. This issue otherwise, but if we don't push this issue, guaranteed they will sweep this under the rug. The firms involved will just want this issue to disappear because it's inconvenient for them. They're very happy to make profits off these parts, but very uncomfortable when they're asked to answer for how these parts were used. Were they aware of how these parts were being used? If they did investigate, what is the result of that investigation? Why aren't those investigations made public? Which, if let's say, for example, company X said, well, we didn't sell this to Turkey, somebody else did. Well, who did? You can determine that. Look at your inventory, see who sold what part, look at the component numbers, track them against what was found on the battlefield, and you can figure out the supply chain between the manufacturer and the end user. This is done all the time at all levels of law enforcement, and it can be done here rather readily if there's the will. If there's the will, and that's the challenge. Is there the will? I submit to you that will must rest in the heart of, first and foremost, in the heart of Armenian Americans. If we take it seriously, our legislators will take it seriously. If we don't take it seriously, they too will let this issue slide. They too will let this issue slide. The profits will continue to flow to these companies. Turkey and Azerbaijan will get the signal, no accountability whatsoever, and they'll just pick up this practice yet again, turn to U.S. suppliers to arm themselves for their next attack against the Armenian people, whether that's in Artsakh or Armenia. I submit this to you as my appeal to take action today, to go to anca.org/accountability, to do just that, to demand accountability on the part of our government, our U.S. government, our American democracy for the weapons that were produced in the U.S. but used ultimately to kill Armenians. Thank you very much.